of the control of dictators and tyrants who dominate the resources of the people they control. This unjust dominion satiates the greed of a few rulers at the expense of citizens in their power. Based on the philosophy of Karl Marx, communism has proven incompatible with the ideals of liberty, prosperity, and dignity of human life, and has given rise to such infamous totalitarian dictators as Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh, Pol Pot, Nicolae Ceausescu, the Castro brothers, and the Kim dynasty. Through false promises of equality and liberation, communist regimes has, as a matter of government policy, robbed their own citizens of the rights of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of association through coercion, brutality, and fear. Many victims of communism were persecuted as political prisoners for speaking out against these regimes, and others were killed in genocidal state-sponsored purges. In addition to violating basic human rights, communist regimes have suppressed freedom of conscience, cultural life, and self-determination movements in more than 40 nations. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Due to its effectiveness in healing the mind and body, by 1999, about 100 million people had started practicing Falun Gong in China. Jealous of its popularity, the CCP's former chairman, Jiang Zemin, single-handedly launched the genocide against Falun Gong. Millions of practitioners fell victim of kidnapping, torture, murder, and forced organ harvesting. Unfortunately, still no signs of any change until today. Since 2017, the CCP held 1 million Muslims, most of them Uyghurs, in secret detention camps without due legal process. Xinjiang's Muslims have suffered torture, forced political indoctrination, and mass surveillance. In January of 2021, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced that the U.S. government would officially designate the crimes against the Uyghurs and other Turkic and Muslim people living in China as a genocide. The CCP promised Hong Kong would enjoy 50 years of autonomy after its handover by the United Kingdom in 1997. History shows the CCP never intended to keep its promise. On June 30th, the CCP imposed a national security law on Hong Kong that criminalizes acts of subversion, secession, terrorism, and collusion with a foreign country or with external elements against the state, with maximum penalties of life imprisonment. The law has been widely condemned by world leaders. And now, as was highlighted by Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the CCP is positioning itself to take over Taiwan as well. Communism is based on atheism, tells people not to believe in God, and attacks human morality. Throughout its rule, the CCP has destroyed and controlled countless monasteries and temples, arrested believers of all religions, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, Buddhists, and others. And eventually the CCP wants its people to worship itself as the one and only idol. Truly a cult-like regime. One of our God-given rights is to make our own choices in life that determine our happiness. When others take that right away, it obstructs our ability to achieve happiness. One of the reasons the United States has been so successful is that its citizens are free to pursue their own happiness. We welcome and encourage those who are determined to enjoy these same blessings. I would say that most of the Chinese people are good and honorable. It is the leadership of a coercive and corrupt regime that drags down the Chinese nation, and for that matter, affects the whole world for the worse. Practices such as live organ harvesting, harassment, re-education camps, and torture of minority groups, theft of intellectual property, and coercing other countries to adopt CCP policies must stop. Communism worldwide has been responsible for well over 100 million untimely deaths and subjected countless others to the worst and widest spread human rights abuses known to history, with victims representing many different ethnicities, creeds, and backgrounds. What other system has caused so much grief and loss for so many? I hope we never forget that. Utah commemorates the victims of communism on the 7th of November each year. It is important to recognize the dangers and threats of communism, and specifically the CCP, pose to our freedom and security. I commend you who have recognized these threats to personal freedom and have acted with courage to distance yourself from the evils of communism. May you be an inspiration to those who see your resolve to take the higher path. Thank you again for your attendance, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.